All right, boom. We are on, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Bigger Picture Podcast. We got a special treat for you today. I got my main man, my frat brother, one of the best men that I know personally, Mr. Mark Ross, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh,
If we was on OBS, I would give you the round of applause and everything, but Google ain't playing no games with me today. So
yeah, I see that.
so listen, man, just introduce yourself to the people. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, my name is Mark Ross, and like you said, we're fraternal brothers, and my fraternal name is Black Caesar. So,
Super dope name, by the way. I never heard the story behind it. One day you're gonna have to share it.
yeah, indeed, brother. Uh, I I am here to share my story and chop it up with you. Uh, I am a podcaster as well, and the name of my podcast is the Speak Your Truth with Mark Ross. And my podcast talks about mental health.
Okay.
And I also talk about wellness issues and have people that specialize in wellness, uh, such as uh, such as life coaches, uh, energy healers, Reiki masters. I mean, I've had a myriad of people from various backgrounds come on my show and share their skill and their knowledge and their willingness to help people. And just recently, Brother JP, I started another podcast on YouTube. It's called Soldier Stories.
Okay.
And that will be mainly about veterans. I want veterans of all colors, ages, and backgrounds to come in and share their soldier stories with me. And a little bit about my background. I am a Marine Corps veteran and I suffer from PTSD, military PTSD. And uh, my story with that is I served 4 years in the military. I got out, and a couple of months after my discharge, I started to exhibit symptoms and
Okay.
with nightmares. I was always, Brother JP, it was crazy how it just started out of nowhere, man. I would just have these wicked dreams of me being back in the military, fighting for my life. And every time I'm losing my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I will always wake up screaming, always. Uh, I will always wake up screaming, and I was sweating so hard, bro, that you know how a marathon runner, a person that run long distance has all this sweat, man. I mean, I'm sweating like I was in a sauna or something. And
Right.
this would happen every day. And
Wow.
this went on for years. This went on for years, brother. And I really didn't think much of it. And to be quite honest, brother, I didn't want to admit that something was wrong with me.
Mm.
I really didn't want to admit that, damn, I'm fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to tell my family and my friends that, yo, man, I messed up, dog. So I hid my issues with drinking,
Mm.
and that became another problem because I was drinking all the time just to keep myself mellow.
Sure.
You know, it goes back to what black comedians always talk about, having that crazy uncle or that crazy auntie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's me, bro.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
I was that crazy uncle.
No, listen, brother, I get it, man, because like I said, I've been going through this journey with my podcast, and uh, you know, you think you good. You think you good until you realize and you start doing your work and digging in, and you start realizing like I'm not as good as I thought I was. And then you start trying to find different ways to cope. So like for you, it was drinking. For me, it was for lack of a better term, and YouTube safe, it was being promiscuous, like
Right.
like the old folks used to say. So that's how I,
Yeah. Same here.
dealt dealt with mine.
Same
And
here. But
so
yeah, yeah, I get you. I get you.
so let me ask you this. So when you have and please, by any means, bro, if I'm a habitual line stepper. My wife says this all the time. So if I ask anything or say anything that's triggering or that is not this is a safe space. So if you feel that way, feel free to let me know and we'll change topics. But I
Good.
want to first just get into the military service, and how it affected you, you know, as far as boot camp goes, and then any active duty or being on tour.
Mhm.
What kind of launched this for you?
For me, it was boot camp.
Okay.
I don't know if many people know this, but Marine Corps boot camp is the roughest, brutal military branch to get in.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we're about the same age. I'm a few years older than you, but I'm gonna shoot this movie at you. Full Metal Jacket.
Yes, sir.
If you ever watch Full Metal Jacket in the beginning, where all those guys were going through Marine Corps boot camp,
Mm-hmm.
we did the exact same thing, and we
Wow.
had to endure. I mean, just as much BS that they did.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, watching that movie, man, it took me back, and that's how boot camp was for me. But the DIs, the drill instructors, were very abusive.
Sure.
They abused their power, and they didn't like me. You know, I was a very naive 18-year-old kid going into the military, man, and I was always a headstrong guy.
Mm-hmm.
So they used to call me belligerent. And here's my youth kicking in. I didn't know what belligerent meant, but once I figured out, it was more or less being hard headed,
Sure.
stubborn, and I was, because I look, I was peeping their bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
I was peeping all that shit, and it was like they knew that I was peeping the bullshit, so they made it harder for me because I'm looking at them in their eyes, bro. I'm a little 190 buck dude, like fuck y'all,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
knew that I was on that.
See,
So,
and listen, that's the reason, not to cut you off, but that's the reason I knew the military wasn't for me. I
mhm.
I knew I thought of, because when I was a kid growing up, I used to like the dress out, what do they call it? The dress uniform.
Dress blues, yeah.
Yeah, I used to think that was so slick, like whew, Marines. And then I got a little older and started digging in. I'm like, nah, I'm good. And then it's like, first they tell you how long the boot camp is, because it's like what, 8 weeks or 12 weeks?
12 weeks. It was 12 weeks when I was in,
Yeah.
and a few, maybe a year after I got into my field, they extended it. They
Hmm.
extended another month. So it's 4 months, 3 months of boot camp, and 1 month of field training. I mean, for real field training. You're out
Yeah.
there, you out there for a
Yeah.
month.
And that's crazy. And see, I think like coming from where we come from, um, to do something like that is probably a bigger psychological uh, undertaking, just because we already come from traumatic situations. So
Hmm.
you go into these situations with the trauma that you already bringing in from growing up, wherever you grew up at, in the hood, or wherever you grew up at, especially when you black, and you've been raised to be on edge.
Right.
you've been raised to, we got PTSD just from going to school every day.
Out the gate.
So I can just imagine, putting something like that on top of just everyday life, going through the boot camp process. And I knew it wasn't for me. I knew that I can go and buy me some blue slacks, get a nice little blazer,
and some man, one of those some patent leather shoes.
There you go.
Good, man.
There you go. I ain't gonna steal nobody's valor, but I'll make it look good.
And brother JP, you hit a good point where you talked about how young guys, especially black boys, we go into the military, and many of us have already experienced traumatic episodes in our life.
Sure.
Some more than others. So you talk about young brothers going in already hyper vigilant.
Mm-hmm.
Already.
Yep.
No, and their eye, it's a one eye always open sort of deal with us.
Mm-hmm.
Because we want to see where the BS is coming.
Yeah.
You did? So we're alert and we're ready. And for me, I went through a few things. I had a few episodes growing up, and I did now that we're conversating, I could pretty much admit that I took some of that with me.
Sure.
And for a lack of a better phrase, it helped me.
That was gonna be my next question. Do you think that you being from where you from helped to shield? Because I don't want to say cope. What I want to say is shield, because we are who we are at our core. No matter what we try to do or what we try to be, it's just human nature. We are who we are at our core. Do you think that helps to shield you from outside forces because you have already acquired this tough exterior?
That and it gives you a stronger mental focus.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're hypervigilant, remember, you're focused. Your body and your mind is focused. You're ready to go. You hear what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's what hypervigilance is. You're watching your surroundings. You're paying attention to everybody that's doing whatever, right? So when you see something coming, you already know how to deal with it.
Sure.
So that's what life and the issues that came with me growing up in the hood, so to speak, prepared me for in the middle. Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you this. So you go through, you do your boot camp, and that's an experience in itself.
It was horrible.
So I want to add, because I have limited experience, I feel like as physically, the hardest thing that I have the only thing that I have to liken it to would be the pledge process. I know that there is probably not a lot of comparison, but the process is the process. So how once you got out and you actually was actively military, how did you cope with that between the time where you got out of basic training until the time you started having these PTSD episodes?
I didn't start having the PTSD episodes until 6 months, I would say, after I got out.
Okay.
I was in the Marine Corps from 1987 to 1991. During my 4-year tour, I was okay, I guess. I was very hypervigilant. But the thing is, Marines are trained to be hypervigilant.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the norm for us. So we were dogs. So we drank, we partied, the sex, the drinking.
Sure.
We did it all hardcore because that's what Marines were known for.
Mm-hmm.
Giving a damn, doing us, drinking hard, knocking dudes down, knocking chicks down.
Mm-hmm.
We did. We was on that. So I came back here to Milwaukee. I was still on that.
Sure. I get it. Absolutely, I get it.
Marine Corps never left. Even when I was online pledging with D-Side, I was still on that.
Mm-hmm.
I was still that dog.
So you pledged after you got out of the service.
Yes.
So listen, that's interesting because for my personal knowledge, did that help you get through the process?
Oh man, it was easy breezy to me.
I could. That's what I was gonna ask. I can imagine with how you speak about that versus the process itself. It probably seemed a lot easier.
Yeah,
wasn't easy for me. I hated them niggas. So let me ask you this: so you start having PTSD,
right.
Once you came to the self-realization that that's what was going on, what did you do? Because the reason why I asked that is because I'm a huge proponent of therapy. My actual life goal is to become a therapist. Um, and so I know that in our community, a lot of times therapy is frowned upon, or we sometimes it don't even have to come from the outside. Sometimes inside we say, I can't do therapy because that makes me weak. That's me admitting that I have an issue that I can't solve myself. So a lot of times we stop just short of being able to get a breakthrough because we don't want anybody to know we have issues, because we try to portray ourselves as being these perfect people without flaw, and it's everybody else that has the issues.
Correct.
So tell me what steps you took to try to get yourself in a better mental space. What coping mechanisms do you use? And is there any outside sources that make you feel safe enough to be able to evaluate yourself to get out of those situations when they do arise?
I'm gonna tell you something, bro. And you touched on a few things. When I got out and I started going through those motions, I told you I drank, and I isolated too. I did a lot of isolating. I chose to be by myself because I felt more comfortable alone.
Sure.
Back in my 20s and 30s, my PTSD, I think it was pretty high. And I continued to run from it. I did exactly what you said. I'm like, I don't want to tell my business to everybody. Because, when we was growing up, I mean, our business was our business. What our crib wasn't what stayed in our crib.
Yeah. What happens in the house stays in the house.
No matter how abusive or trifling it was, what happened in our crib stayed in the crib. So I ran with that, and I went through a lot of dark times, bro. I went through a lot of dark times because the drinking didn't help me at all in terms of, my nightmares and, me isolating and all that, man. I mean, it just made me more of a recluse, a drunk recluse, damn near, because I wasn't drinking every day, Frat, but when I drank,
it was up.
It was
it was up. Yep.
Yeah. So go ahead.
I think that oftentimes we do those things because it gives us delayed reaction. So what I mean by that is we drink, we smoke, we sleep with women, we do all of these things to push back what we actually need to be dealing with. So it's not actually helping. Only thing it's doing is just creating a delay. I'm gonna drink tonight till I black out, so that I don't have to deal with this. But as soon as I wake up in the morning, that problem is staying there and staring me right in the face
every day. And you hit it right on the head, bro. You drink to run from it, but when you wake up, drunk or buzzed, hungover or whatever, the problem is still there.
They're right there.
Yeah. And it got to the point for me, Fred, that I didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't want to be here anymore. I would say to myself, man, I wish I never left North Carolina, because there I felt like I had some value.
Sure.
here in the civilian world, I don't feel like I have any value.
Mm.
And plus, nobody can really understand what I'm going through. So why should I be?
That's so. Listen, I want to stay right there for a minute because that's something that I'm dealing with um, through this journey that I'm going through, and just in life overall, feeling like nobody understood. Like you feel like you speaking clear English, and it's like everybody else is hearing Chinese because they can't understand or see things from your point of view.
Mhm.
When you feel like that, how do you deal with it?
Angry.
Mm.
I feel angry, disappointed that people can't understand the the feelings that I'm feeling,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't feel validated either.
Mm. That's good.
That's something that's big. We when we act out, it's because there's no validation there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think people do not realize how important it is for men to feel validated, and no matter what the situation is,
Mm,
because we have grown up with people telling us that we're not the ones who's supposed to feel validated. It's our job to do the validating.
mm,
And so we get used to not feeling validated. But
mm,
that hole that builds from not being validated, um, not being made to feel important, that
mm,
hole is still there. And
mm,
you try to fill that hole up with a bunch of different stuff. And then it's like when you was a kid and they used to have those is they had the blocks and all of it, they had the different shapes, and you have to match those shapes up with the holes inside of this thing. And if you try to put that square block inside of that circle hole, it's not going.
mm. Right.
And so we trying to shove this star shape into this triangle shape, and it don't fit. And so instead of trying to figure out what's the right shape, which in itself would be the validation that we seek, or just to made to feel like we are important, instead of trying to find the star hole that fits this, we just pounding that star right into the triangle, and we end up doing more damage because we're trying to force something where it don't fit.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's huge, brother. I'm glad you said that because I absolutely, as soon as you said it, I realized that's something that I deal with often, because you feel like you're doing all of this work, you showing up for all of these people, you're doing
Mm-hmm.
all of these things, and at the end of the day, everybody else is standing around with a smile on their face, happy, and you are mentally just obliterated
Oh,
because you've done all you can do.
and that's the struggle that many men have.
Sure. I can say that with all
PTSD has
uh
nothing to deal with that.
mhm.
That is a man, period.
Yep.
Because we were raised to suck it up,
Yep.
suck the shit up, keep moving. Bills got to get paid. Wife has to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
Got to be taken care of.
The world don't stop because you don't feel good today.
No, no,
People don't stop needing things because you are mentally exhausted.
no.
So I definitely get that, bro. And that's a great point that you bring up, because I feel like as men, we just left to our own devices.
Mm-hmm.
Figure it out. Figure it out. And
Yeah.
especially in our community, because a lot of us didn't grow up with fathers. So
Mm-mm.
we have to learn all of this stuff on our own and
Mm.
figuring out by trial and error. Man, I tell my kids all the time, listen, I did what I thought should be done because I didn't have an example to show me what should be done. But it's my hope that I was an example for you, so that when you have kids, you've got a roadmap to follow. And I want you to do better with your kids than I did with you, because my hope is that when they have kids, they'll do better for their kids than you were able to do for them. And then that's how you build a legacy. But
Indeed.
we man, men are, it's tough for men overall, but especially for black men.
It's tough, and it's tough too because, like you said, we didn't have that example.
Mm-hmm.
Many of us didn't, or we had bad examples.
So they,
You know,
somebody told me, said you can learn anything from anybody. You
yeah,
either learn what to do or you learn what not to do.
what not to do.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had that.
It's the saying in scripture. Iron sharpens iron.
Absolutely.
But how can you sharpen iron when you're still bronze? And many of these
Wait,
folks,
wait, 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 wait. You got to say that again, bro, for the people in the back who did not hear what you just said.
in scripture, it says iron sharpens iron. But how can you sharpen iron when you're bronze?
Yeah, wow.
How can you do that?
You
You don't
can't.
know better.
You're
So
going to
all
fold.
so all you can do is teach the kids what you know, or
Mm-hmm.
what little you know. I mean, and like you said, kids are going to learn. Kids are capable of learning from anybody,
Mm-hmm.
or learning what not to learn. But how can we teach our youth to be successful and productive in today's world when many of us don't know what it is to be one?
Mm, that, wow. Yeah.
It's the blind leading the blind.
Mm-hmm.
Back to what you said. Hey, I didn't know, so I had to teach them as best as I could
Yeah.
and hope that they figure some shit out along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think another thing is, and this is something that I'm learning in the letter, because all of my kids, for the most part, are adults now. So I go from uh, instructing to advising. That's how I tell them. I can no longer tell you what to do. My job now is to advise you. And what we often don't realize is, man, we don't really know too much of nothing until we in our 40s and 50s. That's when I be thinking to myself, like, if I would known in my 20s what I know
Mm,
now, I'd be so much further now. But
mm,
the key is to make sure you take the information that you have now and give it to somebody that's 20, so that they'll have it, so that when they your age, they're not in the same predicaments that you are in. And that's why I'll be trying to tell, especially my boys, how important it is to not get yourself locked into what society tells you a man is or what a man is supposed to be, because you'll kill yourself trying to meet those standards,
yeah.
because you think that everybody meeting them. In reality, it's
Mm,
not a lot of people meeting those standards.
no, not at all. Not at all. And sadly, I think a lot of men, we run from it because we know deep down in our hearts that we're not up to task.
Yeah. Yep.
We're
Yep.
not. We're not up to task of playing the role of dad.
Mm-hmm. Or just playing the role of man, period.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I worked in corrections for a number of years, and during my tenure there, I ran into a lot of brothers who admittedly told me, "Hey, I'm a product of my environment,
Mm-hmm.
and in my environment, it was a lot of cussing, drinking, fighting, smoking, and basically doing a lot of unproductive shit."
Sure.
So that's what they learn. So that's what they've become.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying this to say that brothers can't change, but I'm telling you that was the conversation that I had with a lot of brothers that were locked up. And many of these guys said the exact same thing I just told you.
Yeah.
But scary as shit to me.
Wow.
I mean, and I've had different conversations with these brothers. And they all said the same thing. Hey, man, how I grew up fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I grew up living with my aunt, you know, not having a bed to sleep in, and you know, these cats are on survivor mode.
Yeah. Yeah.
So don't give. I mean, it's like being an unconscious narcissist because you are in survivor mode. You will do whatever it takes to put food in your stomach for that day.
Absolutely.
You will do whatever it takes to put money in your pocket for that day.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're in the way, hey, we got to do something about that.
Listen, it's so funny because I was just like, I drive truck, you know, and I'm in the truck by myself, anywhere from 10 to 10 to 14 hours every day. So I got a lot of alone time to think about stuff. And I had this weird thought, because I like to do thought experiments. And so I'm gonna ask you this question. And there is no right or wrong answer because I couldn't come up with a right or wrong answer. But I was just thinking about being a father and how much you love your children and your family. And then I said, who loves their family the most? The man who will risk it all, including being away from them to provide for them, or the man who refuses to risk it all because he knows his presence is needed in the house. And I couldn't come up with an answer to that.
I can't come up with an answer either because both is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Our kids, you know, I've learned this through an OG that I work with from time to time in the arena of fatherhood. He told me that our presence is the present,
Mm-hmm.
and that our kids need our presence. You know, and most kids they don't care. You know, if you're working at McDonald's or something, bro. You know, they want your behind to be at home with them.
Sure.
That's it.
Absolutely.
They want you there.
Just
They
a
want,
little bit of time. Now, I sat here the other day and I was just playing. I barbecued and I was playing Uno with the kids or whatever. And then my son, my youngest son, sent me a message and was like, man, thanks for just spending a little time with me, Dad. And I didn't think nothing of it. It was just, you know, we here, let's get it on.
yeah,
But I don't think we know how important it is because for a long time I just thought like I need to grind and make sure that they got everything that they need. Make sure that, because for me, I grew up in a house where you could wake up one day and mama telling you you got to pack up, we got to move, or we moving into a shelter, or you got to go stay with this family member. So I always wanted my kids to have stability. So that's what drove me to work as hard as I did. But I look back now and I realize how much time I missed. How many you know, personal uh you know, one-on-one times that I wasn't able to do because I'm working third shift, or you know, trying to take care of this and moving and shaking. And next thing you know, your oldest is 25 and you like, wow, I missed a lot of time.
yeah, yeah.
But you can't get it back. But what you can do is try to make it better going forward. And so that's what I've been trying to do. So let me ask you this. When did you see a shift from being the person who has the PTSD, is having these nightmares, and is drinking and doing all of these other things to cover up? When did you shift into trying to get things done in a more healthy uh situation?
Back in 2013, a coworker of mine who was also a veteran, he came to me with this pamphlet, man, and he said, "Read this pamphlet. I want to talk to you about it right now. Just look at this pamphlet when you get some time. and tomorrow I want you to talk to me about this, what you see in this pamphlet.
Okay.
And I said, all right. So I opened the pamphlet, and it talked about PTSD and the symptoms. Now, let me go back. PTSD wasn't really a thing back then.
Mm.
This is something that was new. Back in Vietnam, I think they called it shell shock.
Okay.
So when you came back from Vietnam, I mean, you were different. And that's all that people can tell you. It's like, hey man, when Johnny came back, man, he was different. He saw too much.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So they put a label to this thing, and I read the pamphlet and I saw the symptoms that was listed on the pamphlet. It was about 12, maybe 15.
Okay.
Bro, I read this thing, and I told him when I saw him, I said, man, I went through damn near all of them.
Wow.
All of them.
Wow.
And he told me to, hey man, go get help, bro. Go to the VA, go get seen. And he also told me that because of the pain and suffering you went through while you was in the military, you can be paid for this.
Mm.
So I said, oh really? And he was like, yeah. You have to go through talking with doctors about your symptoms, going into your past and all that good stuff. But if they deem it necessary, that they can pay you for your pain and suffering that you went through. And I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. I was a little reluctant to do that
Okay.
because I felt, well, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And down that side, I really wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And here I'm still running.
And you know what's the crazy part about that? Not to cut you off.
Mm.
I feel like we have gotten so accustomed to lying to ourselves
Bro.
because we know we not okay.
Right.
You know you're not okay, but you just become it just becomes habitual to just say I'm good.
I'm good.
Even if you're not good.
Right.
But the worst person you can tell that to is yourself because you know it's not true.
And I knew I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I knew I wasn't. But I had to put up this front again. And then after 2 weeks, I said, I'm going to go. I'm going to go to the VA and tell them everything. So I go to the VA and I asked to speak to a social worker about the things that I was going through or whatever. And they set me up with an appointment, and I went back and I told them what I was going through. They
Mm-hmm.
asked me if I went to war, and I explained to them. I said, no, I didn't go to war, but I did go through an evacuation. It was a Civil War evacuation that I had to partake in
Sure.
during my time, and it was in North Africa. It was in the country of Monrovia. We had to do an evacuation because it was a civil war erupting there, and we had to go get the citizens out of there.
Okay.
So I explained to them all, I ran the gamut. This is what I went through, boom, 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 boom. And after the lady listened to everything, she said, I'm going to set you up with a psychologist immediately.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And we're gonna get this process rolling as soon as possible. Be looking out for a phone call from us, and we'll just go from there. Okay, cool. So a few days go by, I get a call. it was a doctor from the VA hospital. She wanted to make an appointment with me, and we did. So I went in. I said the whole, spiel to her, and yeah, and she was such a cool chick, man. It was an older Caucasian woman, and um, she was very understanding. Uh, she listened, and she gave me good feedback, gave me good advice as to what I need to do to keep my behaviors at bay.
Sure.
Remember, PTSD is about behaviors, not, behaviors and reactions to things. So she was just giving me good advice on how to react in certain environments, uh, telling me, that, hey, it's okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a mantra, JP, that I use in my podcast. And I tell people all the time, it's okay to not be okay, but do something about it.
There you go. There you go. That's
So,
that's the most important part. I tell people all the time, as long as you're putting one foot in front of the other, you should have some type of movement. No matter how slow you going,
yeah.
just don't stop putting one in front of the other.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So let me ask you this. So when you saw the therapist, and did she give you any coping mechanisms to deal with your PTSD that you would be able to share that would help somebody? Because for me, my PTSD is from when I got shot.
Oh, of course.
And so like for the longest time, any loud bang would just like get me on edge, or any like, I work in trash, so just something as simple as a dumpster lid closing
Mm,
had me like jumping, and
yeah,
I didn't like that because that's not, I wasn't raised like that.
yeah, yeah.
And so is there any coping mechanisms, because I'm sure with it being the military, they probably invest a lot into, trying to help veterans who have PTSD, giving them coping mechanisms that they can use in times of trauma,
Mm-hmm.
or just in times of relapse, or whatever it will be called.
One thing that I've taken away from it is recognizing where I am in the now.
Mm,
Now, I'm, so I'm just using you as an example. I'm working collecting garbage,
sure.
so I know it's going to be some noises. It's okay. For me, it was crowds.
Mm,
Couldn't handle being in big crowds because it made my anxiety go high. Right. So they would tell me, just recognize where you are. You're not back in North Carolina. You're not on ship. You're here in Milwaukee. You're here going to an event. And I would have to tell myself up here, hey, I'm going to be okay.
mm-hmm.
I'm recognizing, and one thing they also told you to do too is to recognize your feelings, recognize how your body is reacting to certain things.
Mm-hmm.
We have to get more in touch with ourselves so that we know, okay, if I'm going to start collecting garbage, I have to get my mind in a calmer frame of thinking before I go along and be productive on my day.
Sure.
I have to make myself mentally present and mentally aware of what I'm doing, because I cannot go, I can't go anywhere and just think everything's going to be cool. It's not. But I have to train my brain. We have to train our brains
Mm-hmm.
to understand that we are not where we were. We are not where we were.
That's awesome.
We are here. We are here in the flesh. Here. We're not there
Mm-hmm.
because it happened.
You got to make a conscious effort to put yourself in the present. So you take away the power of whatever that past situation was, because you here now.
Bingo.
And you said something interesting because like I deal with depression and anxiety real
Sure,
bad.
sure.
And like people don't understand like the I'm like you. I didn't like big crowds. I would have actual panic attacks if too many people got into an enclosed space
Mm,
and it was too many people around. I
yeah,
would have a panic attack and have to leave.
I gotta go. I gotta go.
So when people find out I do stand up, they like, how do you do that with your anxiety? That's the only thing that cures it.
Mm,
Standing in front of those people and dealing with, like you said, being in the now and being conscious of, okay, this is my anxiety. My mind and my body is wanting to tell me that there is something dangerous in me being in front of this crowd, whether it's they don't like what I got to say, they don't think it's funny, somebody may not like me, or whatever the case may be. All of those thoughts start to play in your head, and the more you let them play, the louder they get. And so what I learned to do is just stand there, embrace the moment, embrace the feeling, and
mm,
then push past it. Because
let it go.
when I'm on stage and I'm feeling that anxiety, the minute that first laugh happens, all the anxiety goes away. And then I'm able to realize that wasn't a true thought. That was an imposter of a thought trying to throw me off of what my purpose is here.
Mm,
So
hmm.
I think that's super important what you're saying about just making that conscious effort to say, I'm not going to let this ruin my now because it already ruined my then.
Indeed, brother.
So
You preaching now. Because
I'm gonna ask this and then we'll end it here. But I definitely want to do a part two because there's some other things I want to dive into
okay.
because we both married, we both got wives. I want to talk about how they the part that they play in supporting our journeys as far as getting mentally healthy. And I say that all the time. People say mental health, but mental health is the same as physical health. If you're unhealthy physically, you
Mm,
have to make the steps to get healthy physically. If
yeah.
you're unhealthy mentally, you have to take the steps to get healthy mentally.
Yes.
So I just want to talk about the parts that they play, but I'm gonna ask you, um, once you got into therapy and they started giving you these coping mechanisms, how did that experience change your perspective on just because you doing a lot of dope things with your podcast, with you drawing attention to mental health. Um, I already told you, I think y'all one of the dopest couples I know. I be telling my wife all the time, just look at them. They just, y'all black excellence at its best.
Oh man.
Um, but how did those experiences help you? Uh, how did it change your perception on things, and how does it help you in your current life coping with things? You married, I'm married. I know what that means, and
Mm-hmm.
any husband watching this will know exactly what I mean when I say that. How does those things help you in your everyday life, in your relationships with friends, family, spouses, children, work, all of those things? How do you transfer what you learn to fix this part of your life and apply it to other parts of your life?
That's a loaded question, but but uh, I will say this though, going through the road of therapy and self-realization, it made me more social.
Mm,
It made me more open to be in spaces that once upon a time I would never be in,
sure.
or I would never be as calm as I am now. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I will probably be drinking myself to get crazy drunk to cope.
Sure.
I can be in certain areas in arenas where I don't have to drink because like I said, I had to train my brain to be in the moment. And me being in the moment has lifted a lot of barriers for me in terms of my socialization and how I approach people, how I look at my life, how I value my life, and how I value the relationships that I'm in.
Mm.
I don't, I wasn't married to my wife at the time when I was really, really, really going through it. Uh, Gabrielle caught the tail end,
Sure.
so to speak. Um, and there's still moments where I need to be alone. I need to be alone and recharge my mind.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I used to take, and I haven't done it recently, and I can absolutely feel the effects of it. But I used to take every quarter, I would go and I would get me a room, and I would lock in. I'd take my Xbox, take a couple sticks,
yeah,
and I would just go and I would lock in from Friday night
yeah,
to Sunday at checkout, and I would just spend time with me
mm-hmm.
trying to make sure that I'm good, because this was when my kids was a little younger, and I had joint custody. So I would have them for 3 months, and then they would go back with their mom for 3 months. But right before they would come, I would do it. And then right after they left, I would do it, just because I needed to reconnect with myself, because I'm just giving, 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 giving. And
Mm-hmm.
if and somebody, I can't even remember who it was at this time, but somebody told me that if you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of anybody else? And it never made sense to me, because I'm like, I ain't been taking care of myself this long. I've been taking care of all of these other people for all of this time. But when that mess catch up with you, brother, it is a difficult situation to get out of.
And it will catch up to you.
Yeah. Yep. One day I just literally 2 weeks ago just had complete transparency. I want to say a semi-mental break, just because things got so tough to where once it's out of my control and I can't figure it out, because that's the one thing about adult kids, you cannot control the decisions they make. Only thing you can do is try to help them patch it up when they make the wrong decisions. And so I had to patch a bunch of stuff up, but it was so out of control, out of my control, and I'm not used to being out of control. So it gave me a lot of trepidation, and like you said, I had to withdraw, and I had to actually go back and apologize to my wife, because that's the default setting, and people don't realize that's, especially for men like us, when we get in a situation where things start to feel out of control, we recluse, because we need to pull it all back together before we reemerge to take care of some more stuff for some more people.
Mm-hmm.
So
We got, yeah, yeah.
Yep. So listen, man, it has been a pleasure, bro. I can't wait to do this again.
Indeed,
I
indeed.
definitely, like I said, I want to dive into some more stuff, because we barely scratched the surface. But man, I want to personally thank you, brother, for coming on and being a part of this journey with me,
Yes, sir.
and just helping me help people uh, who don't know how to dig themselves out. Because a lot of times we try to dig ourselves out. No, we doing is digging dirt, throwing it in the air, and it's falling right back on us, and we burying ourselves.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
listen, brother, I will get with you. Man, we got to get up and smoke some sticks too, man.
Yeah. I'm down. I'm down with that. Whenever you got some time, brother.
Listen, all you got to do is let me know when. I'll make it happen, bro. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want y'all to give a round of applause wherever you sitting at, wherever you watching this, whatever you going through. Give my man a round of applause. I hope that something we said tonight touches you in a way that makes you want to better yourself, better your health, better your physical health, better your mental health. Just be a better person overall, because that's all we trying to do is move from one station of life to another station of life in the best condition that we can find ourselves in. And a lot of times we look at things and we only see a little bit at a time. But if you take a step back, you'll get the bigger picture, man. I have been your host, comedian JP Hinton, man. I love you. If nobody else told you today, man, I love you. Brother Mark, I love you.
Back, bro.
And we will see y'all in a minute.